PlayStation 4 has been released for over 2 years now, and even with all of the fantastic games, some games just didn't live up to expectations. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the top 10 most disappointing PS4 games so far. These games aren't necessarily terrible, they just didn't live up to what gamers were hoping for. With that being said, let's get right into this with number 10. Number 10, LittleBigPlanet 3. Media Molecule did such a great job with LittleBigPlanet 1 and 2 that Sumo Digital's LBP 3, while by no means a horrible game, it's nowhere near the caliber of the previous games. LBP 3 still brought many new innovations and new ideas, but it never felt well put together. It's an inconsistent game in that there are times where you're thinking, wow, they did a really good job with this game, and other times where there's technical issues and bugs that make you want to stop playing altogether. Ardent LittleBigPlanet fans should still check out the third game, just know that it's at a lower level than previous games. Number 9, Star Wars Battlefront. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was one of the most beloved games of all time, so when a new game was announced under the Battlefront title, it's just natural for people to get excited. Battlefront was one of the games that completely fell flat on its face in terms of critical reception. Maybe that was due to the enormous hype, but there's no doubt the game had its fair share of shortcomings. The lack of content on release, the repetitive gameplay, it's just a very incomplete experience. Now for Star Wars fans, Battlefront nails the look and feel of Star Wars, but as a complete video game, it's severely lacking. Number 8, The Crew. When Ubisoft announced The Crew, people saw it as a game with a lot of potential, and parts of that potential were realized. The open world in the game is fantastic and provides for one of the best racing playgrounds ever. However, the horrendous storytelling, poor use of microtransactions, and incompetent AI are just a few things that hold The Crew back. Not to mention at launch the game had quite a bit of server issues as well. The word to describe the game is underwhelming. Number 7, Fallout 4. Before you get your pitchforks out, just hear me out. Fallout 4 is a good game. In fact, Fallout 4 was a great game, but there's times when there is just a ridiculous amount of hype and expectations for a game that it is impossible to live up to that. It's funny how when Fallout 4 was released, many were shocked to find the game as a bug-ridden mess. Have you played Bethesda open world games for the last decade? That's what you should have expected. Instead, what people did expect was the second coming of Jesus Christ in video games out of Fallout 4, and they were very frustrated to the imperfections in the game. Fallout 4 carried with it many problems that Bethesda games were notorious for, and unfortunately that held it back from the top tier category. Number 6, Destiny. Destiny was another game that had an enormous amount of hype and expectations prior to release. Made by the former developers of Halo, many expected Destiny to be just as good, if not better. Unfortunately, the story of the game was relatively weak, the locales were uninspired and often pretty generic, and who could forget about the grinding? It just got a bit too bad at some points. Now I should mention a lot of the game's DLC fixed it up quite a bit and made it a much more enjoyable experience, but at launch the game was just riddled with issues. Number 5, Thief. Thief was one of the cult classic game series of the past, and when it was announced that the series would be revived on the PlayStation 4, that was very exciting. However, the word that best describes Thief is mediocre. There's poor presentation with bad voice acting and terrible lip syncing. There were gameplay shortcomings such as poor AI and a lack of weapon options, and the game had its fair share of technical issues. There are good elements of Thief. The stealth gameplay worked well and the level design was on point. I don't want to see Thief die yet. I would love to see a sequel because this is a franchise that is still very much salvageable. It's just that 2014's game left a lot to be desired. Number 4, Killzone Shadowfall. Killzone Shadowfall was the marquee PlayStation 4 launch title. Killzone was already one of the big franchises on the PlayStation 3, and the gameplay we saw prior to the release looked amazing graphically. And it seemed like Shadowfall was shaping up to be a gigantic fixture into the PS4 library. The biggest strength of Killzone Shadowfall is its visuals. This is one of the best looking games you'll ever see. The game is a competent enough shooter, but the multiplayer wasn't a very hooking experience, and the campaign was fine, but nothing to write home about. At this point, Shadowfall is more of a tech demo for the PlayStation 4, as there's so many better first-person shooters out there for the platform. Number 3, Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed for the most part has always been a consistent franchise. Those that don't like the games probably never will, but those that do usually get a quality game every year. Every year except for 2014 when AC Unity was released. The most obvious issues being from a technical standpoint, a poor frame rate, bugs and glitches everywhere, it was just a mess. And outside of those issues, the game itself wasn't very good. It lacked the sense of grandeur that Assassin's Creed 4 had. The lack of quality from AC Unity seemed to be agreed upon by gamers, as the follow-up game Assassin's Creed Syndicate sold very poorly. It's even more unfortunate because Syndicate is actually a really good game. Oh well, guess that's what happens. Number 2, Evolve. As a game being developed by some of the developers that worked on Left 4 Dead, many were looking at Evolve to be a breakout game. The premise and the ideas had a lot of promise, but due to the structure of the game, it felt very redundant. It's fun for a little bit, and then it starts becoming repetitive and boring. Not to mention that the game has a severe lack of content, and additional content for the game was grossly overpriced. If the developers go back to the drawing board and make the multiplayer a bit more diverse and maybe include a quality cooperative campaign mode, a sequel to Evolve could be pretty good. And finally, number 1, The Order 1886. The Order 1886 was a game that I and many others really wanted to like. Set in an alternate history 1886 London that follows the Knights of the Round Table, the game's premise was absolutely awesome. And from a visual and production standpoint, this is arguably the best console game you'll ever look at. However, when you actually start playing the game, that's when the issues become very apparent. The generic cover-based shooting that requires no strategy and the poor use of quick-time events make the gameplay a chore. At times, the game feels like a walking simulator, and the extremely linear level design strips away options for any exploration. And obviously, the biggest issue, the game could be finished in 5 hours by an average player, and there was very little reason to go back and play through it multiple times. The Order 1886 is a game that on paper would sound amazing, but poor execution unfortunately holds it back from being anything good. I hope one day we see a sequel to the game because Ready at Dawn can make something great out of this IP. So that wraps up our countdown of the top 10 most disappointing PlayStation 4 games so far. What do you think? Do you agree with my list? Disagree? Did I forget to mention a game? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching and goodbye.